Well, long time no see. Hey.
Yeah, it's so wonderful to have you on Lingo on Docs. I'm a huge fan of your work, you as a human being, and also all the insights and intelligence you have shared with me about how you make movies and how you bring them out into the world. So I think
You.
this is
That's
going to be
really
a
nice.
this is going to be a fun conversation for all of our viewers today. So for those who don't know about your amazing career, you've been making documentaries for 2 decades for HBO, IFC. You've had 5 films on BBC's Storyville. Your most recent film, All Rivers Spill Their Stories to the Sea, just premiered at CPH Docs.
Yeah.
Your other, I would say, most recent film is Your Fat Friend, which just completed, or probably not completed, is still on its successful self-distributed run. Your other films include Seahorse, The Great Hip Hop Hoax, Orion, The Man Who Would Be King, and one film that is very special to many is your documentary about the final season of Game of Thrones called The Last Watch.
Hmm.
And now, not only are you bringing a new film into the world, but you've also announced the launch of your creative distribution company, Glimmerama.
Oh God,
So,
it sounds like a lot when you list it all like that. But I'm so thrilled to be here. I love your Substack. I'm a newbie on Substack, but it's been really cool like digging into like what you write about and the guests and the conversations you have. I'm always really excited to see who you're talking to. So thanks for having me on.
thank you. Thank you. Well, this is a long time in coming that we've been planning this. So it's great that the day has finally arrived. So, just to jump in, a lot of what I want to talk about today is just have you share so many of your like very constructive and creative strategies for filmmaking. But before we get into the nuts and bolts, I want to start out by talking about the creative work of making documentaries. Oftentimes documentary filmmakers are seen as activists or journalists, but
Mm.
you came to documentary film through being an artist when you were in art school. So talk to me about your journey into filmmaking and also what are your goals as an artist making these nonfiction stories?
Oh God, that's a great question. Yeah, I've got a bit of a unconventional route into it. And when I first started going to documentary film festivals, I realized that everyone had either been a runner or they'd been to film school or they'd worked as an intern making coffee. And I didn't do any of that. I was an artist making my own work. And then I ended up getting a film commissioned off the back of my artwork. All the artwork I'd been making had been with people in some way. And I studied music and visual art at university, contemporary arts. It was a pretty wacky course. Like my visual arts tutor was a student of Joseph Beuys. So the idea was the medium is the message. So you always found the best way to tell the story, whatever it was that you wanted to do. And the most sort of significant work I made, that really like changed my life was an interactive, it ended up becoming an interactive documentary called Homemaker, where it was like a residency where I was embedded in the living rooms of older people who were housebound, and I was doing all these like QuickTime VR panoramas back in the day where you had to shoot them on 35mm and stitch them together in a 200 layered Photoshop file. And part of the commission, I was supposed to introduce technology to these people. And actually, what I sort of came to realize was that the conversations that I was having with people were the work. The conversation was enough. So I learned how to make films. I started to record the stories. I got some training and learned enough and made lots of mistakes. And I think the learning through making mistakes is a really exciting thing. And that work went viral in the early days of the internet. I was sort of hand coding a website to host it. There was a New York based digital arts thing and they picked it up and it went crazy. And I ended up winning an award and then remaking it in Japan. And that became the basis for the first film I made, which was called Teenland. And Homemaker was about older people who lived all in one room. And then Teenland was about four teenagers and the secret life behind the closed bedroom door of four British teenagers. And yeah, I got commissioned to make a 60-minute film from nothing, really, just from these little mini tiny videos. So it was a total baptism of fire, but in a way, because I just came in straight away as a director. Um, I just learnt so much. There was so much to learn from doing that, and then seeing it broadcast, seeing it in a cinema and seeing the audience reaction, and then seeing it broadcast was so, I don't know, it was such a sort of it was life-changing for me. Like in art, it's really hard to tell stories, and in film, you can be an arty filmmaker and storytelling's encouraged. And I just remember feeling like, oh, I found my place. This is what I want to do forever. And then my second feature, Goth Cruise, was commissioned pretty quickly after that. Um, and then I just, yeah, carried on. I love making films. I think, I don't know, there's that thing where you find the thing that makes you feel most like yourself, and making films
Mhm.
really makes me feel most like myself, I think.
And for you, like it sounds like that first experience, that moment of showing the film to the audience
Mm.
was really a transcendent one. How have you, I mean, how do you think about releasing films? Because there's right now, especially, there's so much anxiety
Mm.
about the future of filmmaking, building a sustainable career, and then having your film come out. And, Netflix isn't buying, theatrical is dead.
Yeah.
Nothing works on YouTube. Like, there's every reason to become a real estate agent or an interior designer right now.
Yeah.
But I feel like all of these things are things that number one have always existed, and number two, you've always dealt with in your career, yet you've still succeeded and been able to make the work that you want. So, like, what's your secret?
But there's no secret. But I think that I do think that coming to this as an artist um, makes me think differently about the whole process. I sort of feel like getting to the end of making a film, like being handed, your QuickTime file or the DCP, like that is the beginning. If this world is, this the rollout of a film or the life of a film is like a marathon, getting the film in your hand, like raising all the money, doing all the access, filming for years, that's like mile two. And you've got so far to go. And like thinking of it that way is like a really different sort of psychological shift. And so for me, I'm always thinking about the entire lifespan of it. Yeah, because I want people to watch my films. That's really important. And I feel like you can make intimate, difficult, challenging work. You don't have to compromise the filmmaking, but you have to think about what's the journey that film is going to take. And for some people that might be working with a distributor, but I think that the experiences I've had with quote unquote traditional distribution have been incredibly disillusioning. And when I've sort of thought about, what are the ways that we can engage with this film and take it out to the public and really work with that in a more sort of creative way, it's always been so much more satisfying. Because,
Yeah, I mean,
hmm,
I think like in my experience, I've had films that I worked on Netflix, HBO, Hulu, films at Sundance, all of these experiences. And ultimately, the way that myself and also, of course, filmmakers I'm working with feel about that, really varies. It's not like, oh, you get into Sundance or you get onto Netflix and then you're like, your life is better, your skin is clear, your bank account is fuller. Um, like, can you demystify for me like the traditional path that most filmmakers think they want to be on, of premiering a film at a top festival, getting it bought by a buyer with a name, and then, sweeping up the awards and the money. I mean, everyone knows that's, not going to happen, but demystify it for me. Like, why shouldn't that be something that every filmmaker wants?
I mean, obviously, if you are one of a small fraction of is it less than 1% of films that get submitted to Sundance get in, and you look at the stats of who's actually winning Oscars, and they're the
Mhm.
films that premiered at Sundance. So it's a tiny, tiny, tiny thing. But there's amazing films. If you're going to festivals, you're watching great films all of the time. So I think it's good to just sort of think, well, why not? How are we going to do this in a different way? When we're making films, if you're a producer like I am, like I'm a producer on all of my films, I'm a producer and director. It doesn't mean I want to produce all of it. I work with brilliant people and I have an amazing team. But we always think about like what's the route to audience for this? What does success look like? And it's different things for different films. When I made Your Fat Friend, we wanted to engage a conversation. We wanted to like dig into the messy feelings. The film's about a fat lady who wants to change the world. So can we have a conversation about fatness? And can we talk directly to the audience? Who is the audience for the film? Do we want to reach the mums who might say things that are dreadful to their children? Or do we want to speak to fat people directly? Or can we do both? And so I think we sort of came to the conclusion, yeah, there's capacity to do both things with that film. But, we premiered at Tribeca, had amazing screenings, everything sold out. I think it was like the fastest selling film at Tribeca. There was hunger for it, and you may be thinking, I had a bit of a funny conversation online with Anthony Kaufman on Substack about the idea of you just you got a built-in audience. And I'm just like, where's the built-in audience button? Do you just like, you press it and they all sort of arrive? That doesn't really happen. So with Your Fat Friend, we started an Instagram. It seemed like there was a really healthy community of fat people that had not seen their lives reflected in a film like this before, and there was some people that listened to Aubrey's podcast, and we sort of set up an Instagram account and were able to start having a conversation with the audience, talking to them, but also, because every element that touches the film is the work, the stills are the work, the posters the work, the stickers are the work. It's all the same artwork. And I sort of think about those things and think thousands, tens of thousands more people will watch your trailer than will ever watch your film. So is your trailer representative of the work? So we thought very carefully about all of those things and brought brilliant people in to help make those things possible. So in the same way when you're making a film, you don't shoot every frame yourself. You work with camera people and an editor and sound person or a mixer, and the distribution or the rollout of a film is exactly the same. I wanted to light Aubrey's fat body with luxury. Um, so I worked with a rock star photographer that I'd met at the Emmys, Joseph Cultus. And there's a scene in the film where she's wearing this like furry jacket. She's going to do a photo shoot, and then she goes, "No, no, no, not yet. That's too much." And so when we were talking about the photos, I was like, "Now's the time. You need to wear that." And like the poster is, I worked with a guy, Gavin, who's got a branding company, OK, and he works mainly in the music industry. He works with Doja Cat and Britney Spears. And he worked with the stills, made us a really cool lock-up so we could brand the film. And the poster that we used is based on the design of one of Aubrey's vintage diet book collections. So she's got this book that's called Help Lord, the Devil Wants Me Fat. So the poster is based on this. Oh my God, it's so amazing. Like 1970s diet book collection. So it's a little wink to the audience, like, oh, they get it, they know it. Or you might not figure it out straight away and it looks really cool, but if I was making an artwork, I believe that the work will show you the best way to make it or to tell it. And with filmmaking, I think it's exactly the same thing. So,
So, oh, sorry.
well, it's just that I'm always really cautious. I see on Substack a lot, there's all these like how to do releasing your film. And it's like it's not as simple as that. It's like listen to your film. What does your film need? Who is your audience and where are they? And how can those things sort of tie together? And can you deliver it with care? And can you keep the promises to the people that you made your film with, whether that's how you raise your money, but also how you roll it out? And can you care for your participants, for your crew? We have mental health support on all of my shoots. And can you care for the audience? What does care for your audience look like? And on Your Fat Friend, that meant making 500 cinemas measure their seats and publish their seat size on their websites forever, and to think about seat size as an access issue. And I made 40 kilos of branded tape measures because a lot of people were like, it's too hard. And I was like, you literally just need a tape measure. So I made them tape measures and sent them out. So yeah.
So, okay, so then, I mean, all of that, everything that you do at each sort of micro step of the process is incredibly exciting and invigorating because it's both about integrity, care, and also about building an audience from the beginning.
Mm.
So, when you arrived at Tribeca and you had this sold out premiere, like, did you even did you wonder if you were going to get any big distribution offers? Like, did you get any big distribution offers? I mean, I know they
Oh,
had to move the screening to a bigger theater because so many tickets were sold. Like, what was the reaction from distributors? And also, like, you've had a long career, like, you're a known name.
yeah, this is like my ninth feature. And so
Yeah. And what year was this, just to timestamp it for
it was
everybody?
2013.
No,
And
no, wait. Your
oh
fat
no,
friend.
God, I've got Your Fat Friend was 2023. I like shaved
Yeah.
10 years off it.
Yeah.
So, I'd made Seahorse in 2019, and with that, we raised the money through the BBC to make that
Mhm.
film. Um, and because of that, it meant that the UK rights were gone. It was a co-production with Grey Media, a great production company. It meant that we were not able to even entertain a streaming idea for that film. And that was something we'd wanted to do about a trans film, to have a big conversation. So when
Mhm.
we were sort of looking at the possible ways to finance Your Fat Friend, because it's made over a long time, like observational films cost quite a lot of money to make to do it properly. Um, for me, I wanted to take money where I could make a film about a fat person. And it could be made softly. There wasn't going to be like weird conversations about why isn't she trying to lose the weight? It's like, no, this is about someone's lived experience. I wanted to be able to raise money where I could control the name of the film and the
Mhm.
poster and all of those things. Anyway, so we arrived at Tribeca and we had all our rights intact, and we had a brilliant sales agent, and the plan was to do a big sale.
Mhm.
So they were having active conversations with streamers for some a good while after the festival, and it just didn't land. It just didn't work at that time. There was sort of a shift in the industry around that time where there was more sort of like, well, we want to initiate the films so we can control them, and you can shoot with these DPs and you can work with these editors. And it's just like, it doesn't work for like an observational film made over 6 years. It's just, well, I mean, shall I go in a time machine and go back? this is what we have. So it became apparent that the big sale wasn't going to happen.
And that was because they didn't think that the film would creatively work on their platforms, or
We
I'm
did
just curious,
we did
like,
get detailed feedback. There was some talk at one point that one streamer might buy it and they might recut it and or shoot their own version and use my film as archive and I was just like, what? This is crazy.
really? That's
Yes,
the
because I was
craziest thing I've ever heard.
and I was sort of seeing the audience reactions, like people were losing their minds for the people that it hit because they hadn't seen a fat story told with integrity or they hadn't seen this before and they really, really wanted to see it. So it was quite hard to sort of listen to feedback like this. And because if I was more of a baby filmmaker at this point, I could have just said, "Oh, we just failed. That's it. It's over. Nothing's gonna happen." But I don't know. I'm too old and and I work with I've got a brilliant sort of partner in crime, creative producer and business affairs person, Suzanne Alizar, and we've set up Glimmerama together. And there was a point where we just sort of said, well, what have we got? We've got loads of desire to make this work. We know there's an audience, and we believe that there's a way to release this in the world. And we explored some of the traditional routes. And, I met with distributors, met with sales agents, and was sort of offered very mediocre deals. But the thing that I had was data on the audience, data from our Instagram account, but also we did some film drops on Kinema to raise money when we wanted to qualify the film for the Oscars and also because we wanted to take the film to UK cinemas. The UK scene is, there's a reason why bands come to the UK. It's fairly compact. I know the scene, I know a lot of the programmers. I brought Tell Stories on who are really good. They're a distributor, but they can work as a booker. And so I knew that we could release the film in the UK. So we just started to sort of get this plan together. It was like, why don't we just try and learn? We wanted to learn something, get angry, have a good time, which is something that's in our trailer for the film. And it was a really sort of good North Star to have.
Words to live by. Wait, I'm gonna write it down and put it on a post next to my desk. What
Really
did you say?
learn
Get
something, get angry, have a good time.
So, okay, so what people are going to want to know now is they're going to want to drill into these numbers, right?
Yeah.
Like anyone can set up an Instagram, anyone can set up a kinema drop. The theatricals sort of another can of worms, but just
Mhm.
talk to me about the brass tacks of the numbers of
Sure.
building up that Instagram to the drops on kinema, and then how you were able to use that money to both and then we can talk about the Oscars and the theatrical piece.
Sure, sure. So, we started the Instagram account the day that Tribeca launched, and we'd got like really strong key imagery. So that's like really important. And I would like any filmmakers that are watching this, I think the traditional advice is like, have you got three stills or eight? It's like, have you got 200? You need like a lot. And we started to play the film at a lot of festivals. We played at Sheffield Dot Fest and we won the audience award. And we started like creating a lot of content. So every single event we're doing, we're creating stuff and we're listening and we're getting feedback. And we're actually getting our own feedback instead of listening to, you can listen to a lot of sort of depressing, oh, the market's dead. Oh, there's no market. It's just like, forget it. What are we going to do now? So we knew that we wanted to bring Aubrey to the UK. Um, Sheffield was such an amazing experience. We knew we wanted to bring her to the UK. So we did what lots of people do and we applied to the British Film Institute because they have an audiences fund. We're very lucky in the UK that there is some money. the downside to that is the BFI's money is it's coming from the government, and often you have to fit very, very specific criteria and benefit cinema audiences as a whole. And it's very tricky to apply for the money. So we applied for the money. I remember like being on holiday writing this bloody form, and we didn't get it, and I was absolutely devastated. So I was like, God, what are we going to do? And we were just like, we kept getting these messages on Instagram, which was just like, take my money. And so I sent a screenshot of that, and I was like, let's just go to the audience. I did not want to do crowdfunding again because I've done crowdfunding twice before, and it's a lot of work, an enormous amount of work. It's too admin heavy. We sort of like, let's reframe this. We're going to do a fundraiser. We're going to make it very quick. And we're going to do a film drop on Kinema. And we wanted to, there's a scene in the film where Aubrey goes home for Thanksgiving. And Thanksgiving's tough for a lot of fat people because you're surrounded by insensitive aunties and too much food and lots of people going on about how fat they've got. So we thought, it's a great sort of thematic link in. Let's make the film available for 3 days on the Thanksgiving holiday weekend, and let's do a live event at the end using Kinema. And let's be really clear with the audience. So we just sort of said, look, we want to take the film out. We're listening. And we need to raise funds to do that. So let's do it as a fundraiser. So I think we set the ticket price at $25. And the way Kinema works is you set how many tickets you want to sell, you set the price, you set how long the film can be seen for. So it's only 3 days, and I think we originally set the target at 1,000 tickets, um, because we were selling them for $25 a piece. And then I think we ended up expanding it to 1,700. But we wanted to expand our mailing list because if you've got a mailing list, you've got more, you can learn more about your audience. Where are they? Um, where are they concentrated? Who are they going to show up to a screening? So we did this drop. I made some graphics on my phone for Instagram, which just sort of said film drop coming. The tickets are gonna go on sale in 3 days. Did a timer. And if you join the mailing list, you got 24 hours early access to buy the tickets. And we were in London. I went to an event and we sort of pressed go on the sale. And it was just like watching the money come in. Like we made more money than we'd applied to the BFI for in, I think it was 25 minutes. And
Incredible.
and also it's not a loan. Like the BFI money's a loan, you have to pay it back. This was just like money that we could, I can't make a film about a fat lady describing trauma that she experiences on a plane, and then bring her to the UK and not put her, I wanted Aubrey to never turn right on an aeroplane, and that's really expensive. So that's what care looks like. So we need to fundraise for that. So we did it, and then we expand almost all the tickets we'd allocated for the preview lot sold out. So it's like, oh God, okay. So we made like another 700 available, and they all went. So then we were like, okay, this is brilliant. Let's do it again. So we did it at Christmas, and this time I brought someone in to help with the socials because it was just too much for me to do. And we asked loads of questions of the audience. Where are you watching? What does your watch party look like? Who are you watching with? What do you feel like? And the feedback we got was amazing, and we made loads of content from it. So it felt like you were having this, it felt like you were watching in community, even though it was like an at-home experience. And we did like Josie Long, the British comedian, hosted a Q&A, like a watch party at the end of the first weekend, and we had, I think it was 900 people tuned in live to chat, and it was amazing. It was just so exciting and reassuring, and the opposite experience of sitting around talking about traditional routes to audience and how the industry is broken. This was just
Yeah.
like, the audience is right here. And we've listened and we've fine-tuned what we're doing, and people are into it. So let's do more of it. And it made us feel confident about trying out an Oscar qualifying run and then doing the theatrical release and then figuring out where we were going to do that. We knew which cities to book
Hmm.
because we asked the audience and we could base it on audience feedback. And yeah, and like test everything we tested out, we sort of doubled down on. So like we got Josie to host the first Q&A. Then we got Sophie Hagen, who's a brilliant Danish comedian who's based in the UK, fat lady. So Sophie hosted the second watch party thing that we did. Um, and we were like really pushing Kinema. This was, 2 years ago. So Kinema was a much newer platform. So we were asking for data, plus the email addresses, and we wanted the ability for donations and for gift tickets. So they couldn't do gift tickets, so I figured out how to do it on our website. And so then they had to make codes. And it was really, oh, it just felt so cool. It's just so fun. This is really fun. Like, can we make it? Yeah, let's do it. It's like applying all the tenacity you have to do when you're actually filming, but doing it to the rollout in the same time. It's really, I find it really enjoyable. I know that other people, they're like, this is absolutely not what I want to do. But I just loved it because it felt like the storytelling's like bleeding into the world, you know?
And also, I think that when you're getting that feedback from the audience, like that's what we're here for. Like you make, I mean, not all artists, not all filmmakers, but I think for a lot of filmmakers, having an audience and feeling that reaction and response is like what you're in it for. I mean, I definitely saw that, publishing op docs for so many years and having honestly, the privilege of releasing so many films. I saw that with the filmmakers where it was like, wow, like that's such a high as an artist to put your art out there and then hear directly back. And I think, when I listen to you talk and I see your excitement and the glimmer in your eyes talking about it, I feel like that's something to really like underline for filmmakers who are watching this and thinking, oh my God, like I don't have it in me to do all this work. It's like, yeah, but the return on that investment is financial, but also just spiritual in terms of getting all this human feedback and knowing your film is landing. Like that's such a powerful experience that you're talking about.
And also it's so rewarding. And also the film can be difficult and messy and challenging. Like there's some scenes in Your Fat Friend which are really like you're witnessing tough family dialogue. So the
Mm.
film can be challenging, but the rollout can be I don't know, it can be a different thing. It can be an extended conversation. And that felt, I don't know, I felt so sort of like renewed, and it took what had been quite a devastating experience to be like, oh no, no, there's a way to carry the storytelling on. And so when we qualified for the Oscars with a run at DCTV in New York, and that was sort of like Aubrey couldn't be there, and I was sort of worried, like, can I carry this on my own? And it was brilliant. We sold out every screening. Um, we we did loads of selfies with the audience, and just getting to speak to people was fantastic, and having different hosts for the screenings. It was just so satisfying, you know? It just felt so good. And it meant that we learnt stuff that we could carry on when we took the film out theatrically in the UK.
So as you're talking about this film and this rollout, I'm thinking about All Rivers Spill Their Stories to the Sea, your new film, and then also Glimmerama. So as you're sort of crossing into this new threshold with a new film and a new company, like what are your goals for each of those things? Because I think it's really interesting to think about sort of the individual project, but also sort of the strategy writ large for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, the Glimmerama's a new company and we're describing it as it's the creative distribution arm of Glimmer Films. Uh it's called Glimmer because I'm interested in that small glimmer of a moment that happens when you're filming, that just little something something. I'm interested in small stories because I know that the act of filming and the act of distribution is an amplification. And so Glimmerama just sort of felt like the perfect name for that. And we were able to raise some money from the Global Screen Fund from the British Film Institute, which will enable us to do it's like a 5 year expansion. And with that, we wanted to do some creative distribution experimental work. And what that means in practical terms is, you know, um, All Rivers Spill Their Stories to the Sea is my 10th film. And there's, I've had a number of retrospectives over the last few years at Criterion, at BFI, at MoMI in New York, which was really wonderful. And it's so great when because I'm sure like other filmmakers, when there's films that you initiate yourself, or even like my Game of Thrones film, there's um there's a continuity. And it's really lovely to be able to like join the dots. And I think about my the rights that are in my film are so valuable. They're like my legacy. And part of the work of Glimmerama is that we're looking at all of those rights, and I just want them to work really hard. There's a lot of things that, when filmmakers die, they end up getting the box set, and that's too late. I want the box set while I'm alive, you know? And I want to make it easy for people to see my work and to connect the dots. The Great Hip Hop Hoax and Orion the Man Who Would Be King are both films about like complexities in the music industry, and it would be great to repackage those, or you know your back catalogue is really really important, and that's why I'm a producer on all of my films, because it means that if I have my rights, then I'm able to, they can be adapted for fiction, or they can be put out in a Blu-ray or reissued. Like I sold The Great Hip Hop Hoax to Netflix a few weeks ago. And that's great. The film's being seen by a whole new audience. So
So So just sorry, just to clarify. So Glimmerama is a distribution company that's really focused on distributing your work and your catalog. Because I know when people hear you talk about distribution, probably a lot of filmmakers are like, "Ooh, I would love for Glimmerama to take on my film." But is that sort of in the long-term plans?
I think so, yeah. But I mean, I love the ideas. So I don't want to be a distribution company like sorting out DCPs for people. That is like,
No.
that's not in the
That would be
line.
a waste of your time.
That's not in the learn something, but I really love working with filmmakers and getting them to think about distribution. I think in the past, self distribution sounds like some ropey guys selling DVDs out of the back of a car at a boot sale. There's some dodgy batteries on the next stall, and then there's a whole load of DVDs. You know, as soon as you're taking money for your film, you're in distribution. And I thought, why don't we make a company so we can really think about this? So like the key things we're doing are looking at my catalog and making that work really hard, putting out my new films, developing new projects. So we've got a development slate of 3 new films. And then the other thing that we're doing is working with filmmakers to think about what is the story, how can the storytelling continue for their film? And it might be that they work with a distributor, but it might be that they look at what are the other possibilities, because it's so binary at the moment. I'd like to encourage people to think more creatively, or to not be scared of it. and to we've got some sort of exciting plans with some organizations. So because I think that organizations that are funding films, that are giving production funds, also need to invest in distribution funds. Because I I did a I did a case study of Your Fat Friend for a cohort of brilliant filmmakers. And I get on one. It's like ADHD in action. Just do like an hour long, 200 slide presentation. This is how much money we made. This is what we did. Da 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 da. And it's a bit terrifying for people. And so I think the gap in there is one to sort of say, look, this is possible, but then also it's to work with structural organizations so that there is funding available because
Why do you think they're terrified?
I think they
Like,
just
what
look at
about
it
it
and
is terrifying?
think people say, well, you can do that. I haven't got
Mhm.
those ideas. And, or they just see the amount of work it is. And I would sort of counter that and say, I mean, it is a lot of work, but it's so satisfying when it works. And it's sort of like building a path for your future as a filmmaker. And you get to know so much about what you care about. And also, if you're making films and you don't have a route to market, what are you doing? You know, something needs to happen because the streamers will not save you. If they haven't come in on your project at sort of development stage, it's unlikely, other than for a very few projects, that the streamers are going to come and save you or take your project. So who's going to see it? So that's something I think about. But I do know that some filmmakers have sort of said they either say, we copied everything you did on your last campaign, and it's like, why? We developed that from the ground up. The solution isn't do kinema watch parties and you got to do the thing that fits
Wait, what was the name of that rock and roll photographer? So I'm just
exactly.
kidding.
So there's always a narrative reason for the choices I make. The opening credits to my Game of Thrones film are hand woven because I wanted to show the audience that I was showing you small stories hand stitched by many hands. There's a
Mhm.
narrative. It's not just, oh yeah, that's the style. You just apply that. I think you have to really listen to the work you're making and it will show you the path. And then the more you learn, the more you can be informed in your choices that you make. So for All Rivers Spill, um, on Your Fat Friend, we worked with a brilliant booker, Tell Stories, Johnny Tull. And for this film, we'd love to work with Johnny again, but actually, it's better for the learning of Glimmerama if we bring someone in and they become part of the team. So we learn more. I just want to learn more because it will inform the next choices I make. And even if the learning is that you just turn down the terrible deal, because
Mhm.
often, on I've had films where we've gone down the traditional route and your rights get tied up for 15 years and you never see a penny because they go on expenses. If you get an MG, you're lucky. And they might change the name of your film, the poster. You don't get you hand over all the fun stuff. What I think is the fun stuff. And yeah, like I wouldn't design my own. I work with a designer, but I can direct it. In the same way I wouldn't mix my film, but I sit there in the mix with this very skilled mixer.
And also, I think we should sort of turn this conversation around too and talk about how you start the process, right? Like, this is a very intentional strategy that you've created. And, you know, for example, in the pitching stage of a film, it's so hard to pitch a film.
Yeah.
It's so tricky. And there's definitely great films that have been made that were like terribly pitched. And then there have also been great pitches that made bad films.
Mm.
So, taking your sensibility of hard work, lots of thought. Like, how do you apply that to the beginning of a process to developing a film and raising the money? Because that's also something that all filmmakers are always trying to do.
Yeah, I think it's worth remembering that funders are an audience as well. So I think
Mhm.
about that a lot. When in the olden days when I got my first film commissioned, it was enough to, have a conversation and an A4, I think it was an A4 sheet of paper and some photos were the thing that got me into development and then made a pilot.
What's
But
an A4 sheet for those
it's
of
like a
us who
one
like a one
one piece of
pager,
paper. Yeah,
like
like
eight
one
and a
paper.
half by 11, kind of just
Yes. Yeah. So now I I always imagine within each new film. So I'm in development at the moment. And so first of all, you've just got to be absolutely seduced by the story that you want to tell. And a person that exists is not a story. So I get emailed a lot by like, We've, do you want to make a film about this person? I'm like, I mean, that's cool. They're alive. What's the story? And often there is no story. It's just, a music label wants you to reactivate their back catalogue because they understand the value of catalogues. And I'm like, babes, there's no story here. Like, so, yeah, so I'm always like, okay, well, here's the starting point. What's the story and how do we get there and how do we show it? So the film I've got in development at the moment, I think they build Chicken and Egg gave me development money and they've built it as the incredible, unstoppable, untitled Jeanie Finlay project. Which for that I made a deck that was 40 pages. And so I'll write some stuff. I'm not great at writing, so sometimes I'll work with a writer. My husband's a brilliant writer, so sometimes he'll write stuff and he did on this project. But I'll start amassing images and I start to lay it out like it's a film so that you can see how it's going to play out. And funders just want to be intoxicated. I know 40 pages sounds like a lot, but that's a lot of images and tone. Like, what's the world? Let me take you by the hand. I'm going to show you this world. Here's the story, and this is why you should care now. And this is why I am the person to make this now. And with each film, I want to learn something new. So for the new film, I want to do a lot of really experimental camera stuff from 100 years ago. So I've been looking at camera techniques from the beginning of filmmaking because that's what this story needs. So,
that sounds really amazing. I actually just heard that the at Cannes there's going to be a documentary about the Lumiere brothers
ooh,
directed by the programmer of Cannes, so who knows if it'll be good.
oh goodness
But
me, ooh la la,
exactement, mon
yeah.
chéri.
But yeah, I think the enthusiasm goes a long way, but I think people just have to be absolutely intoxicated by it in the same way as you are.
Yeah.
And the point I didn't make because I get distracted is this things are massively competitive, hugely, hugely competitive. So I always sort of think I've got to stand out of thousands of people. So I'm gonna really give it my best shot. And I get so many rejections. I saw Paul Sung is a brilliant British Southeast Asian filmmaker, and he was posting today that he's had two rejections in the last fortnight, and he's devastated. And we don't talk about that enough. And all of the comments, me included, were saying, "Yeah, I've been rejected by so many times." And for every thing that you post on social media and celebrate, there's so many no's, and you just have to get your averages up or listen to the feedback. I always ask for feedback.
Yeah, I think asking for feedback and also one of the things that I've done is start this Substack, because it's something that I own and control and is immediate. No one can tell me no, which might be a bad thing if I, post a bad post that's boring or wrong. But at the same time, the gatekeepers really are the gatekeepers. And I was just talking actually to you about film festivals offline about how a lot of times when you get rejected from a festival, it says more about the festival than it says about your film. And
Mm,
it's the same way with funders. I mean, they have such specific goals, and then they're looking across a slate of projects and how they speak to each other and what boxes are they checking. Like,
yeah.
rejections feel very personal, but when they're from big institutions, they're not as personal as they feel. And I also say that as someone who at OpDocs, I got 100 pitches a week, right? And we
So
published 40 times a year.
what for you when people were pitching would make you just go, "Oh my God, I've got to have this."
Well, yeah, I mean, I think when people pitch, I'll just talk about people who are pitching things with footage.
Hmm.
Usually within 3 seconds, I know if I like it or not. Not necessarily if it's going to end up on OpDocs or anything like that, but also now, people send me their teasers, their trailers, their rough cuts. The sensibility. I always think of film this way. The world is black, there is nothing, and then there is the film, right? It's this incredible act of creation to make a film.
Mm,
And that is something that is very precious.
mhm,
And so but I don't think that all films are made at the level that the pri that they maybe can be or deserve to be. Like it's actually also really hard. Like I'm not saying that I can make a great film that I would have put on OpDocs, but when you kind of see it, you know it.
mm,
And what it really comes down to is, a lot of times people will say to me, well, I'm never going to get into this festival because I've never made a film before, or people don't know my name. And I think that really the work speaks for itself at the end of the day. And when you create images, sound, story, like you have all of those elements, like it's just undeniable. There's
mm.
no secret formula to it. Like is you've just got to know it. And like one piece of advice that I heard, I wish I remember who said it, but I don't, which is like if you want to, when you want to be a great artist, musician, filmmaker, it's all about taste. Because in the beginning, nobody can make anything that's any good.
Ira
But
Glass. Yes.
is it Ira Glass? Thank you,
Ira
thank you.
Glass, that you where your taste doesn't meet.
Yeah,
Sorry, I'm
when your
interrupting
taste,
you.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So you make things and then you have good taste, so you know your thing isn't good enough. So then you go and you try harder to make work that meets your taste. I think that's honestly the best advice for
Yeah.
anyone. Like, as you're looking at your own work, like, is this something you would want to watch? Is
Mm,
this a story that you are interested in making? Because if you're just doing it for some other reasons that aren't really true to like the pit of your stomach, it's probably not going to be good.
mhm. Yeah. I think I agree with that. And I think about that Ira Glass quote quite a lot. And I think about that in the edit. So, I edit for it sounds long for British filmmakers and really short for Americans. So we edit for like 7 months, 6 or 7 months. And there's always a point where we have like a rough cut screening, and I think that we're 80% there before we start. So we watch it, and it's always a disaster. And I realize that we're actually at 50%. And it's because the film has not reached my taste level for where I want it to be, or it's not doing the thing. And often, I think a lot of filmmakers stop before it sort of gets there.
Hmm.
They're not tough enough on the edit. So
Hmm.
like with All Rivers, we did 3 rounds of test screenings. And I don't mean like, oh, what I do is I just invite people in who don't know anything about the film. And then I just ask them loads of questions. Did this make sense? Did you like this person? What about this? Did you get this? And often things that you think are really clear, like no one gets at all.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I'm in the lucky position of being I'm based at a cinema, so they let me use the cinema screen. So I'm watching my rough cuts in the cinema to get that sort of audience feeling. And it's really valuable. It's amazing because I mean, it's tough. My God, like, I find them so like emotionally overwhelming, but it's a really good way of working out whether what you want to say is actually doing the thing. And this gets closer and closer and closer. But yeah, it's brutal.
It's so brutal. And ultimately, you know, yeah, I have this thing where oh, I should, since we're on Substack, all my paid subscribers, I will do a one-on-one for 30 minutes. And honestly, almost all the calls I've done have gone longer. I actually have enjoyed so much meeting my subscribers. And one of the things that always comes up is, sustainability and how to build a career and the financial piece and all of that. And, this isn't like a normal job.
Mm.
And I think, listening to you is like an important reminder of like how much work it really takes. And if you're not up to being Jeanie Finlay, you probably maybe you shouldn't do this, which is also advice. I interviewed Geeta Gambier last year, and she said a similar thing. She said basically, you should only do this if there's nothing else in the world you can imagine doing, because like it is that hard. And I think that that's an important message. I mean, the British, stiff upper lip thing is very different from the American attitude, which is that like everything should be easy and I deserve to be president, which, like my husband's who's from Argentina, he's always like, why in America do they tell kids that like you can be president one day? Like that's not good advice. Anyway, us Americans, we really think we deserve it all and we're all excellent and you know what? We are, but in the actual reality of the world, if you want to do whatever you want to do and make whatever movies you want to make, it's just like a ton of work. And there's not a lot of gratitude, and there's not a lot of money, and there's not a lot of accolades. But the satisfaction is like when your audience that you find loves your work, you get that little heart, you get that comment, you get that feedback, and then hopefully that ticket sale.
Yeah. I mean, it's worth saying that we did all of that work for Your Fat Friend and it worked. Like, we were the biggest documentary at the UK box office. And we've paid back a lot of our investors. Like, the film's nearly broken even. And also, in my budgets, everyone gets paid. We don't do deferrals anymore. Too old and I need this is like this is a real job. This is my only
Yeah.
job. So I have to get paid properly. I have a daughter in university and this everyone needs to get paid properly, not
Yeah, I
on a
mean,
deferral and also
yeah.
not on a secret parental money either. This is my only income. So it has to work ethically and also financially as well.
Definitely. Yeah, I think, you know, as I raise money for films, I used to have a full-time job with all the benefits. And now that I don't, and I'm raising money for films, the way that films are funded are not ethical.
Mm.
Giving people grants is not a way, nobody's paying their bills off of like grant funding, right? So, not to say that people shouldn't give grants, they absolutely should. But I think for the people trying to do this, it's important to level set. I had a call with a reader who was making her first film, and literally all she wanted to know was like, am I missing something, or are the ways documentaries get funded like not a sustainable way to like pay your mortgage? And I was like, nope, you're not crazy. That is how it goes.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that the only way that I've been able to make it work is I usually have three films on the go. So my ideal is one in development, one in the edit, one out the door. So at the moment, I've got one that's just going out the door. We're about to release All Rivers, but we're having to be, again, we're being pretty tenacious with how we're raising the distribution money for that film because it has to work. Because you need us, it's just the cash flow thing. The cash flow always is a nightmare. And even there is funding available, there is regional funding available. Like we did a Scottish co-production and we did a German co-production on this film. And we raised money from 10 different sources, including private equity investment, BFI Dot Society, all these different things. Um, but the cash flow, like you keeping the wheels on the on the thing while you're waiting for the money to come in is that's wild. It's tricky. But, if you're making the distribution work, then that can help. It helps everything keep going. But yeah, it's a lot of juggling.
Well, this conversation I think has been really fun to have, and I hope very informative for our audience. We're coming to the end of our time. So is there anything else we didn't cover? Any question that I should have asked that I didn't? Any
Um,
parting thoughts, words of wisdom? What are three books you've read?
any books? I'm about to start reading Lena Dunham's book.
Oh, I know.
It
Oh my God.
released today, so I'm going to start.
Yeah,
My sister's a costume designer. She worked on Industry, which when Lena Dunham was directing. So I'm very fascinated to see about that. And what I would say is we are going to release the case study for Your Fat Friend. We've been figuring out like how do we do because it's so like big and unwieldy. So we've been figuring out a good format for that. But the best thing to say is to just join join my mailing list. Go to glimmerarmor.com and join the mailing list, and then you'll find out straight away. I should get better at being on Substack. I keep being busy. It just seems like another job. But I've been writing a piece about grief that I'm gonna publish quite soon, I think, on Substack. But yeah, that's the main thing. The last thing as well is that I do a free Ask Me Anything event once every 2 months, and you just come along with a question, and it's really cool. We get people from all over the world joining, and it's really collegiate and nice. Feels like a nice thing to do. So just if you're interested in that, just sign up on my website, jeaniefinlay.com, and yeah, just think of a good question. But thanks so much for the conversation. It's been really good to chat. I hope there's some things that will be useful for some people.
definitely. I'm sure there will be. Well, thank you so much for doing this. Really appreciate your time and insight. This was a wonderful conversation. I always learn something when I talk to you and get inspired. So thank you.
Thanks, Kathleen.
Okay.
Okay,
Bye.
bye. So.